The most famous remark often made about barefoot running is that humans evolved to run barefoot, but not on pavement. And this remark is the same pitch that footwear companies use, so you buy their shoes. Conventional wisdom holds that if you run barefoot on pavement, doing so magnifies impact and is a logical precursor to injury. Versus running barefoot on softer surfaces, we are primed to believe that softer surfaces equate to softer landings and less impact generated during running. Hence, we are strongly advised to wear cushioned running shoes when running on hard surfaces like pavement. It is believed that there are more intense impact currents shooting through the foot and the body when you run on harder surfaces, again, which is why it's strongly believed that footwear or cushioned footwear offers the best protection from impact when a runner runs on pavement. But let's recognize that much of the running injuries are still rooted in how certain forms of footwear changes our foot strike pattern when we run. For instance, the traditional running shoe, which often has an elevated cushion thick heel, often enables or encourages a heel strike landing pattern during running, which is a foot strike landing pattern that appears to generate more impact than forefoot strike running. A forefoot strike landing is a foot strike landing that is most often utilized by barefoot runners as well as many elite runners. And by extension, a forefoot strike landing provides sufficient impact protection because a forefoot strike landing eliminates an injury-inducing impact variable known as the spontaneous impact transient force, which is uniquely produced in a heel strike landing. And I'll link a video that I did below about how the spontaneous impact transient force is generated in a heel strike landing, but not in a forefoot strike landing. This is one of the factual basis for why forefoot strike running may be a safer style of running compared to heel strike running. Heel strike runners tend to be flooded with more impact than forefoot runners, whereas in forefoot running, many injurious impact variables are bent downward. There's essentially less intense impact projected on the leg in forefoot running than in heel strike running. And I also posted a video down below in the description box on the demonstration of a proper forefoot strike landing. In getting back to the relationship of running surface and injury, because forefoot running is associated with less impact parameters than heel strike running, a forefoot strike landing is enough to provide sufficient protection for barefoot runners who run on pavement. It's important to know that if you run barefoot with a forefoot strike landing on pavement, this is especially relevant because you typically do not produce any more impact than if you were to run barefoot on grass. That sounds like a positive, making running shoes less of an important player. And this is also why running in traditional running shoes is really falling out of favor among many runners who do take up barefoot running and discover that barefoot running feels much better in a substantive way. Many runners who do take up barefoot running have a complete resolution of injuries. Now, I always like to say that there are a number of factors that contribute to running injuries, but running barefoot on pavement may not be one of them. In fact, I was really struck by a 2012 Harvard study, which is also linked down below in the description box. The researchers compared the impact variables and impact parameters such as impact intensity, impact duration, as well as magnitude in heel strike and forefoot strike runners, and how surface type influence impact parameters during forefoot strike and heel strike running. It's important to overstate that the researchers found that the foot strike type, not surface type, may determine impact intensity generated during running. Unsurprisingly, the researchers found that heel strike runners generated more impact than forefoot strike runners, and that the spontaneous impact transient peak force, which is known to cause many running injuries, this particular impact variable was generated in a heel strike landing, but not in a forefoot strike landing. And I was also thrilled to learn about from the study that since forefoot runners ran with less impact and no spontaneous impact transient force was generated, cushion running shoes may not be needed to reduce impact on harder surfaces, such as a steel plate. A forefoot strike landing during running may be enough to serve the need for enriched impact protection, especially when a barefoot runner runs on harder surfaces. The main distinction is that forefoot running does not produce the measurable spontaneous impact transient force that may be the real source of most injuries that is produced in heel strike running, and this impact transient force is often the main reason why runners wear thick cushion-heeled running shoes. But if this unique impact component is not generated in a forefoot strike landing, we can, with high confidence, be less dependent on cushion running shoes for impact protection. This is how forefoot running is associated with less impact than heel strike running. And when you can manage to run with less impact, doing so is essential for getting better results in terms of running pain and injury-free. Ultimately, this piece of evidence may put a new emphasis on changing the way we think about running and surface type. Forefoot running, whether it be on hard or soft surfaces, knocks out a major impact component that is well known to cause injury and thus could make you more injury resistant to impact-related injuries. This must be why many barefoot runners, and remember that most barefoot runners land with a forefoot strike, not a heel strike, this distinct lack of certain high impact variables in a forefoot strike landing during running is central to the maintenance of impact protection in barefoot runners. And this observation really does challenge a deeply entrenched way of thinking that running on pavement equates to greater impact production. But one of the incentives gained from forefoot running is that this style of running may free a runner from high-risk impact forces if they choose to run on hard surfaces. A forefoot strike landing can factor into why you look at a barefoot runner running happily and gracefully on pavement and wonder why they're not getting hurt. Well, running barefoot on pavement doesn't hurt, nor does it cause injury if you run with a forefoot strike. The forefoot strike landing is the secret mechanical sauce that's going to keep impact low. It's the forefoot strike landing that is going to be necessary for the barefoot runner or any runner to potentially dodge impact-related injuries when running barefoot on pavement, and that forefoot running is an irreplaceable resource that alleviates and effectively relieves the consequential impact associated with heel strike running. So the take-home message, the central insight, is that foot strike pattern during running seems to be the main determinant of the force intensity that appears to influence injury, not the surface you run on, so not surface type. Whereby if you run with a forefoot strike landing, especially when barefoot, if you were to run on pavement, just because you're running barefoot on pavement doesn't necessarily mean that you will produce more impact if you were to run barefoot on grass or on sand or other forms of soft natural surfaces, because a forefoot strike landing appears to offer sufficient mechanical mechanisms that may drive a softer, lighter, less forceful exchange with you in the ground, and landing four-footed during running, it may be the best delivery system that can be helpful in your effort to avoid impact-related injuries. As for heel strike runners seem to generate more impact than forefoot strike runners. No matter the surface type the heel strike runner runs on, this more than suggests that heel strike running may be more harmful than forefoot strike running. And the fact that heel strike runners generate greater impact when running on harder surfaces as compared to forefoot runners can certainly be used as a justification that forefoot running is a more safe way to run, especially at the mechanical level. Awareness of these findings may inspire and encourage runners who are stuck in reverse with their injury prevention efforts to practice forefoot running and to adopt a forefoot running technique to achieve more gains. When it comes to avoiding running-related injuries, there may not be such thing as a magic bullet, but landing with a forefoot strike comes remarkably close. So just know that running on pavement does not create another risk of running injury if you run with a forefoot strike landing, especially if you plan to run barefoot or in minimalist running shoes. And running barefoot is always an important tool to help polish and refine your running style because it provides immediate feedback, whereas in cushion running shoes, you get reduced feedback accuracy, but the high degree of sensory input flooding the foot when you run barefoot enables you to make a continuous assessment to make the basic adjustments in postural alignment, foot strike intensity, and other additional mechanical form fixers favorable to safer running that can otherwise be made sloppy when running in thick cushion running shoes. But most importantly, when you run barefoot, you are more alerted on your foot strike pattern Your forefoot strike landing will be more targeted with greater perceptual accuracy. And of course, another side benefit of barefoot running is that it works well to strengthen your feet and improve arch height and improves balance control, especially at the ankles. For more information regarding forefoot running versus heel strike running, as well as barefoot running versus shod running, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my blog, runforefoot.com. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.